Turkey is threatening to pull out of the refugee deal it signed with the EU if the bloc doesn't grant visa-free travel to Turkish citizens soon. Under the terms of that agreement, Turkey has been helping stem the flow of refugees into the EU. The number of people entering the EU by sea has dropped from nearly 27,000 in March to just over 1,700 in July. In exchange, the EU said it would offer around $6.6 billion in aid by 2018 and grant visa-free travel to all Turkish citizens travelling to the EU, but neither of them has been entirely fulfilled. Well, let's get more on this story. We can speak to two correspondents. The first is Hasan Abdullah in the Turkish capital, Ankara, and we also have Elena Casas in Brussels. Hasan, we'll come to you first. The Turkish foreign minister is warning that the Turkey-EU deal could collapse. What exactly has he said?
Well, Asha, what the Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, as well as other government officials here in Ankara, are saying is that Turkey has been living up to its part of the commitment. They're talking about the March 18 deal, and they're saying that since the signing of this deal, Turkey has been making sure that it is controlling the flow of refugees and migrants into Europe, and that it is taking the burden. Now, government officials are saying that the country has been hosting close to 3 million refugees, and there hasn't been much sharing from the European side. What they're saying is that Turkey has been taking the financial burden and the commitment that was made from the European Union of bringing in close to $7 million, that has not been lived up to either. And initially they were saying that they were expecting the visa-free regime to kick in from around June time, but that did not happen. And at the moment, what Mevlut Çavuşoğlu and other officials are saying is that the European Union is bringing in conditionalities that are not practical from Turkey's point of view. They're talking about the revision of Turkey's anti-terrorism laws. The officials here are saying that's not going to happen because Turkey has its very specific set of security requirements that it needs to work on. And they're saying that it seems that the European Union is not living up to its part of the commitment. And the officials here are saying that looking at the way populism is on the rise in Europe, particularly race-driven populism and sentiments, they're saying that it seems that the European Union is not going to be able to live up to its own human rights commitments and the commitments that were made on the 18th of March. So here, there is a lot of pessimism at the moment, and there's a lot of pressure from the public as well as from the opposition parties as well to basically review this deal.
OK, Hasan Abdullah, we'll leave it there in Ankara. Let's cross now to Brussels, where we can speak to Elena Casas. Elena, Turkey is clearly not happy. There appears to be a bit of a stalemate here. Does the EU have a backup plan if Turkey does decide to pull out? Because that could be a major headache.
Well, the EU is very keen to emphasise it has not changed the requirements for visa-free travel since this deal was made on the 18th of March. Turkey always had to tick 72 different boxes for requirements that need to be fulfilled before Turkish citizens can have visa-free travel in the EU. And the EU repeats that those boxes have not been ticked, and a number of them, including changing Turkey's definition of terrorism, as your other correspondent was talking about there, the EU considers absolutely vital because it thinks that Turkey is using its terrorism laws to crack down on political opposition, something that the EU wants to see stopped before its citizens can get visa-free travel. Something that the EU is concerned about, though, is that they're already seeing a slight uptick in the number of refugees arriving on the Greek islands since the failed coup in Turkey just over two weeks ago. They say that they've seen over 10,000 refugees arrive on the Greek islands in the last 2 weeks, when that number had been reduced under the deal made in March to about 40 to 45 people per day only. So they are starting to be concerned that Turkey has already taken its foot off the brake a little bit in terms of stopping refugees from reaching the Greek islands. Perhaps, according to some European analysts, that's because some of the police forces that were supposed to be policing the refugees have been purged or have lost their jobs, and there aren't enough people to replace them. But no, Europe doesn't really seem to have a backup plan if Turkey does decide to take its foot off the brake entirely and allow people to start reaching the EU again in the numbers that they were last summer. And of course, Europe still doesn't really have a plan in place to house all of those people if we do start seeing tens of thousands arrive every day again.
OK, Elena Casas in Brussels, we'll leave it there, and Hasan Abdullah in Ankara, thank you.